You were not pulled here by chance, and before your mind tries to explain this away, pause for a second and really listen. Something in you has been restless. Something has been circling the same feeling, the same memory, the same question, over and over, like your soul keeps knocking on a locked door inside your chest. You tried to be reasonable. You tried to move on. You tried to call it timing, loneliness, emotion, imagination, anything that would make it easier to carry, but it stayed. That is why this moment matters. Because what if the feeling that keeps returning is not here to disturb you, but to wake you up? What if the thing you keep trying to silence is actually the truest part of you asking to be heard? Stay with me, because the next few minutes may explain why this person still lives in your energy, why the silence never felt fully empty, and why part of you has never been able to call this connection ordinary. You may have hidden it well, maybe from friends, maybe from family, maybe even from yourself. But deep down, you already know this touched something in you that everyday life could not touch. And when something reaches that deep, it does not disappear just because the world on the outside becomes quiet. It waits, it echoes, it returns, so take a breath. Let the noise drop for a moment, because what you are about to hear is not meant to feed fantasy. It is meant to bring shape to something you have felt for a long time but struggled to name. For longer than you admit, you have carried a private knowing. It followed you into ordinary moments, in the middle of work, in the quiet before sleep, in those strange gaps during the day when everything looked normal, yet something inside you felt unfinished. You told yourself to be practical. You said maybe you were reading too much into it. Maybe it was just old pain. Maybe it was only desire, wearing a deeper mask. And still, beneath all of that mental noise, there was another voice, softer, steadier. Not dramatic, not loud, just present. That quiet inner voice did not vanish when your mood changed. It did not go away when you stayed busy. It did not leave when you tried to distract yourself with other people, other plans, other hopes. It remained, and that matters. Because passing emotions come and go with circumstance, but deeper truth has weight. It lingers. It asks to be faced. It does not beg for attention, yet it refuses to be erased. This is where many people make the wrong move. They treat a deep signal like a problem that needs to be shut down. They rush to bury what was actually trying to guide them. Do not rush here. Listen carefully. What if the reason this feeling keeps returning is not because you are weak, stuck, or unable to let go? What if it keeps coming back because part of you already recognizes something real, something your mind has not fully accepted yet? There is a reason your thoughts keep circling this person. There is a reason your heart reacts before your logic gets the chance to build a defense. And once you understand that reason, the confusion starts losing its grip. What you felt was not a random spark passing through your life and leaving no meaning behind. It carried depth from the start. Not because it was perfect, not because it was easy, but because it reached parts of you that ordinary attraction never reaches. It felt like recognition, like meeting someone and somehow sensing more than what the moment itself could explain. Even if the connection was brief, even if distance formed, even if silence entered later, something about it continued living beneath the surface. That is the part you cannot reason away. You tried. You tried giving it smaller words. You tried reducing it to chemistry, timing, projection, wishful thinking. But every time you made it smaller in your mind, it rose again in your chest with the same quiet force. That is why you are still here with it. Because some connections do not belong only to the level of daily events. They touch identity. They stir memory. They awaken parts of you that were sleeping. And when that happens, you do not simply get over it on command. You change through it. Watch this carefully, because this is where the truth begins to separate itself from simple longing. A real bond does not only make you want someone, it makes you see yourself more clearly. It reveals what is unhealed. It shows where you still hide. It asks for growth, honesty, courage. It brings your shadows up, not to shame you, but to free you. That is why this has felt so powerful. It was never only about another person. It was also about the version of you that this connection came to wake up. So how do you know whether this is something deep or just attachment dressed in spiritual language? The answer is not found in panic. It is found in what remains when the emotional storm passes. One clear sign is peace, not constant excitement, not obsession, not endless anxiety. Real depth carries an unusual calm underneath the intensity. Even in distance, even in silence, even in not knowing every detail, Some grounded part of you still senses that what was real does not vanish just because time passes. That quiet steadiness matters. It is different from clinging. It is different from fear. Fear says chase, force, prove, secure. Deeper knowing says breathe, trust, watch, become clear. And maybe you have felt both. Maybe your wounds made noise at times. That is human. But under the noise there was still that calmer layer, that strange inner certainty that this bond could not be measured by surface conditions alone. The second sign is awakening. This person did not just make you feel wanted. They made something come alive inside you that had been asleep. Maybe it was your truth. Maybe it was your tenderness. Maybe it was your courage, your depth, your ability to feel love without pretending to be smaller than you are. They reflected parts of you back to yourself. And once those parts wake up, you cannot fully return to who you were before. That is why this has stayed with you. It changed your inner world. And if this is landing deeply, do not click away now, because the next part explains the sign most people ignore until it is too late. The third sign is the staying power of the feeling. Simple need weakens when its source disappears. Passing desire fades when attention moves elsewhere. Ordinary loneliness softens the moment something new arrives to distract it. But when a connection continues to live inside you through time, through seasons, through silence, through completely different chapters of life, then you are dealing with something that does not answer easily to surface logic. You may have tried to starve it of attention. You may have tried to outrun it by becoming busier, more disciplined, more detached. Yet somehow it kept finding you in the small cracks of the day, in a song, in a dream, in a quiet moment that felt too full to be random. That does not automatically mean every feeling must become a relationship, but it does mean the experience carries meaning. Nothing this strong arrives only to leave you exactly the same. It comes to change your vision. It comes to stretch your capacity. It comes to show you what still needs healing, and what is no longer small enough to be ignored. And here is the part your fear may resist. What is meaningful is not always immediate. What is real is not always easy. Some bonds enter your life, not to give instant comfort, but to begin a transformation that takes time to understand. That is why trying to shrink this into a tidy explanation has failed. Because what you are carrying is not only emotion, it is process. It is a deep internal movement. It is the soul trying to get the mind to stop pretending nothing important happened. Then comes the hardest question of all. If this connection means so much, why did distance happen? Why did silence come in? Why would something that felt so alive be followed by space, confusion, and separation? The honest answer is that not everything meaningful is meant to unfold all at once. Some connections arrive before both people are fully ready to hold what they awaken in each other. That does not make them false. It means they carry weight. It means they demand maturity. A strong bond can expose wounds just as quickly as it reveals love. And if those wounds are still running the show, two people can pull back, not because nothing is there, but because too much is there, and they do not yet know how to meet it well. Read that again in your spirit. Sometimes the pause is not proof of failure. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes life creates space, because the version of you that first met this connection could not yet sustain where it was meant to go. So the silence feels cruel, but underneath it, a deeper kind of work begins. Patterns surface, fears get exposed, old defenses become visible. The ego wants to declare it over, because uncertainty is hard to bear. But a deeper truth says not yet, not finished, not done growing. And this is where many people break their own hearts a second time. They mistake the pause for the whole story. They decide meaning ended just because movement slowed. But some things are still unfolding long after the visible part goes quiet. This pause was never meant to reduce you. It was meant to deepen you. It was meant to bring you back to yourself so completely that you stop looking outside for proof of your worth. Because if you enter a connection needing another person to make you whole, fear will eventually poison what love was trying to build. Then every silence feels like danger. Every delay feels like rejection. Every uncertainty becomes a threat to identity. That is why this space matters. It forces you to face the fears that would have quietly shaped everything if they remained hidden. The fear of being left. The fear of not being enough. The fear that love must be earned through pain, pursuit, or self-abandonment. The distance exposes all of it, not to punish you, but to free you from it. This is the part that changes everything if you let it. You are not being asked to sit still and suffer while waiting for life to decide your future. You are being asked to become full within yourself, to build inner steadiness, to heal the part of you that confuses intensity with security, to learn peace without needing constant reassurance, to become someone who can receive love without gripping it so hard that it turns into pressure. That is real preparation. That is real growth. And once that begins, the energy shifts. You start noticing that the ache becomes cleaner. The fear loses some control. The obsession loosens. In its place comes a stronger center, a calmer power. A deeper trust that what is right does not need panic to survive. Stay with this part. Most people want reunion, but they skip the inner work that would allow reunion to last. And while you have been changing, it is possible the same pressure has been working on the other side too, even if you cannot see it. Silence does not always mean peace. Distance does not always mean forgetting. Sometimes it means resistance. Sometimes it means someone is fighting what they feel because it asks more of them than they are comfortable giving. While you were learning to trust your inner knowing, they may have been trying to bury theirs. While you were leaning into growth, they may have been running from it. But running does not erase truth. It only delays the moment it must be faced. People tell themselves many stories to avoid deep feeling. It was only timing. It was not that serious. I can move on. I do not need this. Yet when a bond has truly marked the soul, those stories eventually begin to crack. The distractions stop working the same. The routines that once helped them avoid feeling start to feel empty. Silence gets louder, not softer. Memory grows sharper, not weaker. And what they push down begins to return in ways they cannot fully control. A dream that feels too vivid. A thought that arrives out of nowhere. A moment of recognition that cuts through all the excuses they built to stay comfortable. This is not fantasy. It is the natural pressure of truth on a guarded heart. And if they are quiet, that quiet may be its own battle. Pride, fear, shame, timing, old wounds. All of it can keep a person frozen long after the feeling itself has returned. That is why external silence can hide massive internal movement. There comes a moment in these stories when avoidance becomes more painful than honesty. That is the turning point. Not when the calendar says enough time has passed, but when inner resistance starts losing its power. When someone can no longer pretend that distance solved what the connection revealed. When the pain of staying hidden becomes heavier than the fear of coming forward. That shift matters because it changes the quality of action. What returns from that place is not a weak impulse or a half-hearted reach. It carries truth. It carries surrender. It carries the breaking of pride. But before life moves on the outside, signs often begin moving on the inside. Pay attention. What keeps repeating around this person? Is it a number? A dream? A memory that arrives with strange force? A song at the exact wrong or right moment? A feeling in your body that appears before your mind even forms a thought? Notice the pattern without forcing a story onto it. Sometimes life speaks in echoes before it speaks in events. Sometimes your job is not to decode every symbol, but to become still enough to recognize what keeps trying to reach you. And here is an important addition most people need to hear. Signs are not a substitute for self-respect. They are not permission to chase blindly, beg or abandon your peace. Real guidance will always move you closer to clarity, dignity, and alignment, never farther away from yourself. So if you notice patterns, let them remind you to stay awake, not desperate. Let them sharpen your awareness, not steal your balance. The soul recognizes, the ego rushes. Learn the difference. As this turning point approaches, your work becomes very clear. Release the need to control every outcome. Release the urge to script how this must happen, when it must happen, or what exact words must be said for it to feel real. Life does not always return things in the same form they first arrived. Sometimes it returns them cleaner, stronger, more honest. Sometimes it removes what was false and preserves what was true. Your job is not to force the path. Your job is to become ready for truth in whatever shape it takes. That means making room inside yourself. Let go of the resentment that keeps replaying the old silence. Let go of the need to punish them in your mind for what they could not yet give. Let go of the version of yourself that still believes love must be chaotic to be deep. Choose steadiness. Choose self-respect. Choose a heart that is open without becoming unguarded in the wrong way. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. Forgiveness may be part of this. Boundaries may be part of this too. Peace does not mean passivity. It means you stop feeding fear with your own imagination. It means you stop treating uncertainty like proof of loss. It means you hold your center while life finishes teaching what it came to teach. And do not miss this, because it matters more than people think. The more whole you become, the less you will need any specific outcome to confirm your value. Ironically, that is also when love can meet you in a healthier way. Not when you are empty and begging, but when you are full and able to receive. There is also a deeper layer to all of this, and if you understand it, the whole story changes. Some connections do not come into your life mainly to give romance. They come to wake identity, purpose, and emotional truth. They show you what still lives beneath your practiced image. They reveal where you have been performing strength instead of truly becoming strong. They tear open the places where you settled for half feeling, half trust, half life. And once that opening happens, you cannot fully go back to sleep. That is why this experience has felt larger than a normal chapter. It pressed on your old patterns and your hidden longings at the same time. It forced you to see where you still abandoned yourself, where you still doubted your intuition, where you still waited for the world to confirm what your spirit already sensed. This is why the connection matters, even before any final outcome is visible. It has already done something real. It has already changed the way you feel, the way you reflect, the way you look at love, the way you look at yourself. That alone is not small. And if more is meant to come, it will come on the foundation of that change, not instead of it. So do not measure the value of this story only by whether it looks complete today. Measure it by what it awakened. Measure it by what it stripped away. Measure it by how much more honest you have become because of it. Sometimes that honesty is the first miracle. Sometimes that inner awakening is what opens the road for everything else that follows. So if you have been asking whether you are imagining all of this, hear this clearly. You are not wrong for feeling deeply. You are not foolish for sensing that some connections carry unusual weight. You are not weak because something meaningful stayed with you. But you are being asked to hold that truth with maturity. Not with panic, not with fantasy, not with self-erasure. Let your knowing become grounded. Let your hope become peaceful. Let your heart stay open without turning every quiet moment into a verdict. If this bond is meant to move again, it will not need you to destroy yourself while waiting. It will ask you to live, to heal, to grow, to become someone who can meet love awake. And if movement is already building beneath the surface, then the strongest thing you can do now is stay aligned with your own center, so that when truth arrives, you can recognize it without fear twisting its shape. This is the moment to trust what has been changing in you, the softening, the strength, the clearer self-respect, the deeper calm. Something is still moving, something is still being shaped, and the story may be closer to its next turn than you think. So breathe, keep your heart clean, keep your life open, keep becoming the version of you that does not need to chase what is truly yours. Because when the next shift comes, and it may come more suddenly than expected, you will want to meet it with clear eyes, steady hands, and a soul that no longer doubts its own voice. And if this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, do not ignore that. Let it remind you of one final truth. What is real does not ask you to shrink. It asks you to rise. It asks you to release the old stories that made you believe love must hurt to prove itself, that silence always means the end, that distance always means loss, that your deepest intuition should be dismissed the moment it cannot be logically explained. No, sometimes the deepest truths enter quietly and take time to unfold. Sometimes what looks delayed is being strengthened. Sometimes what feels hidden is being prepared. And sometimes the person who seemed far is walking through their own breaking point, their own clearing, their own return to honesty. Whether that return becomes visible tomorrow or later is not the part you control, but the peace you build now, the healing you choose now, the life you honor now, that changes everything. So keep moving toward your own wholeness. Keep choosing what is clean, grounded, and true. Keep listening to that deeper voice beneath fear, because when life brings the next chapter, and it will bring one, you do not want to meet it as the old version of yourself who trembled at every sign. You want to meet it as someone transformed, someone calm, someone ready. And that may be the real reason this entered your life in the first place, not only to connect you to another soul, but to return you to your own.